When people talk about video games these days, the word escapism comes up a lot. The thing is, escapism can feel like a loaded term, like it's inherently a bad thing. Let's talk about that.
Drop pod is cleared. Warm up. Time to get to work, team.
Remember, leave no one behind.
Life can be overwhelming sometimes, work, school, family, or some days simply just existing. It might feel at times like you're running on fumes, and when life gets a bit too much, it's only natural to want to take a break. Escapism is just our way of stepping back from the chaos. It's a coping mechanism to deal with stresses. It's what we do when we need a moment to breathe. So, let's clear something up first and foremost. Escapism isn't a bad thing. In fact, it's often necessary. Sometimes we need to step away to recharge and refocus. In the context of video games, there's plenty of games that by design are very relaxing. Think, Stardew Valley, Animal Crossing. Honestly, the whole cozy game genre that propped up at some point has just really managed to fill a gap for a lot of people based on that need and feeling. They don't demand much from you, they're, gentle, inviting, they're easy, but also most importantly, they're comforting. I would even go so far as to argue that any game can really be a cozy game if it's something that you can just boot up and forget about whatever happened during your day, but I'll leave that up to you to fill in. The problem, however, with escapism is that when it starts to replace engagement with the real world, when that feeling of wanting to get away from everything becomes a crutch, it can keep us from dealing with the things that actually matter. Keeping that in mind, maybe every now and then, take a moment to ask yourself, shouldn't I be doing something? I personally know I like to get sidetracked when somewhere in the back of my head I know there's this one particular task I've actively been avoiding. And sometimes it's not just tasks that we're running from. Sometimes it's whatever, is going on in our own head. It's something that I briefly touched upon in the last video, how we carry around emotional weight without always realizing it, and like that little rucksack of heavy feelings that we don't really unpack or confront until we take time to slow down for a moment and listen to ourselves. And that's where escapism can come in, and where it becomes malicious. Because instead of listening to ourselves and embracing whatever uncomfortable things are coming out of it, instead we see that uncomfortableness, we see that as something bad and negative, and instead of heading straight towards it and embracing it and going through whatever it is, we instead turn around and run away and hide in something. It can get even worse if that escapism becomes more chronic, where it can lead into things that are more harmful, like video game addiction. But it's not all doom and gloom. Like, escapism isn't an all-or-nothing situation. Games have become such a vital part of modern entertainment, and they've grown into a socially acceptable way over time to unwind or even connect with others. But it's important to stay mindful and make sure we're not getting stuck in these cycles of avoidance. Now, I'm not a professional in any way, shape or form, but I have some advice based on my own experiences. Like, first and foremost, when you finish playing a game or when you're taking a break during it, ask yourself, am I feeling more relaxed? Or does it feel like something feels off? Like, maybe, you have something that you're supposed to be doing, but you're kind of trying to push it back by playing video games. Or because you're simply just, not in the mood to deal with that right now. Regardless of what it is, if something feels quote-unquote off, it might be worth digging into why that is. Sometimes our brains are trying to tell us something that we're not ready to hear. Another piece of advice that I can give is if your only way to unwind, or at least if you feel that your only way to unwind is playing video games, maybe try switching it up. Do something else that you also enjoy doing. And it doesn't have to be something completely different, right? Like, you could watch a movie or a series. For me personally, I like playing music, I like reading, and sometimes I'll make the conscious choice to skip gaming for the night and pick up my guitar or a book instead. And also with that, I think it's maybe also important to note that it's not about, you know, quitting games. It's not that games are bad or something, but it's about variety and balance. Finally, be kind to yourself. I've said this again in the previous video, but it's such a simple concept, but sometimes just hard to put into practice. Being kind to yourself. It's not always that easy, and I get that. But it's important to, you know, repetition is important in these cases, and I think, you know, repeating being kind to yourself is something that could actually be helpful. Especially because life doesn't always go the way we want it to. That's okay. Don't beat yourself up for needing an outlet. It's a very normal and human thing. Like, we all deal with stress, we all deal with negativity and negative emotions in some way, shape or form, and we need outlets for that. Whether it's work, stressful day at work, whether it's going through a bad breakup, or simply just you woke up on the wrong side of the bed. Like, some days it just, you know, it doesn't work, and we need outlets for that. It's a completely normal process to want to step away from the mess and kind of find our way through it. There's actually one more thing that I want to say, is to keep in mind that it's not about ignoring the issue, right? If you, despite all of this, still feel like something ain't right, something is off, maybe reach out to someone that you can confide in, or maybe even a professional. Sometimes it's about taking small and meaningful steps toward a healthier mindset, and we can't always do that alone. Sometimes we need a little bit of help. Just like when unwinding, we need a little bit of escapism in our video games.